In today's program, our guide Sami Hassan is going to take us on a detailed visit to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
Today's itinerary, we are going to start by the Egyptian Museum.
They have without a doubt the world's greatest collection of Egyptian antiquities going back over 5,000 years in time.
Okay, please, in the museum, I need to be very close to me. Yeah?
Who are those children?
They are school children. They came. It's one of the field trips they do.
Do they always dress like that?
Yeah. No, usually we have uniform in our schools.
Our visit is going to bring you an in-depth look at Egyptian prehistory and Egyptian early history, as well as an up-close look at many of the beautiful artifacts that are found here in the Egyptian Museum. We'll be showing you a lot of the treasures of King Tut, probably the most famous part of the Egyptian Museum, but we'll also talk about Egyptian history, the pharaohs, the succession of the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, the New Kingdom, and this history is vividly brought to life by these little statues, most of which were found inside the tombs. We'll also be talking in this program about the revolution that occurred in Egyptian religion with the first monotheism back in the time of Akhenaten.
Well, first I will give you some introduction about the Egyptian history. Talking about the Egyptian history, according to the historians, the Egyptian history was divided into three main parts. If we say these main parts are the golden ages of the Egyptian history, the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom, three tops. In between the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, we have a dark age. In the history, we call it the first intermediate period. Between the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom, we have another dark age. We call it the second intermediate period. And at the end of the New Kingdom, we have the third intermediate period, the late period, and on 331 BC, Egypt was conquered by the Greeks under Alexander the Great. You know Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great stayed in Egypt for a very short time and then left Egypt to go to some military mission in Syria, and he died in Syria. The one who took over after Alexander, his brother, and then his general, one of his two great generals, the name of that general was Ptolemy. Ptolemy decided to announce himself as the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. And his sons, grandsons, and his daughter succeeded him. And they are 14 kings in the name of Ptolemy and 7 queens in the name of Cleopatra. I mean, we don't have just one Cleopatra, we have 7 Cleopatras. And the most famous Cleopatra is Cleopatra the 7th. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor was Cleopatra the 7th. And then Egypt was conquered by the Romans under Octavius, and that was 31 BC. And the Romans stayed for about 600 years. The Greeks, the Ptolemies, stayed for 300, and then the Romans for 600 years. And then the Arabs conquered Egypt on 641 AD. Until today, we are Arabs. Okay? This is the Egyptian history in just 3 minutes. So in this museum, we have over 150,000 pieces. These pieces were discovered in different parts of Egypt, in the south and in the north. We call the southern part of Egypt Upper Egypt, and the northern part of Egypt Lower Egypt. In Upper Egypt, in the area known as Luxor, we discovered the tomb of that young and minor king Tutankhamun.
The gold funeral mask of King Tut is one of the most beautiful and one of the most famous images in all of art history. We get a chance to walk through the treasures and see the actual gold sarcophagus weighing hundreds of pounds, made out of solid gold. And we'll learn how Tut returned Egypt to its old polytheistic religion.
the king himself was not a black man. He was not a dark skin. He was as brown as me. We have his body. We can look at the skin and know his color. But when they decided to make a statue for the king as a bodyguard, during that times, the ancient times, they used to have black Egyptians as bodyguard because they were famous as good warriors and strong people. So when they decided to make the statue of the king in the form of the bodyguard, they painted his skin in black, as you can see here. The material of the two statues is wood. What we have here is a statue made out of wood for the black jackal or the black dog. This jackal is considered as a manifestation, just a manifestation for the god known as Anubis, A-N-U-B-I-S. Anubis was the guide of the soul to the afterlife, the soul of the king. And in the same time, he was considered, this god Anubis, considered as the guard of the cemetery, the god in charge of mummifying the bodies of kings and high officials. These jars were put in the tomb, were found in the tomb, because they were filled up with wine or beer or water to be like a supplies for the king, for the journey to the afterlife. The king, after his death, is going to start a very long and difficult journey through the different ways to the afterlife. We have here, as you can see in front of you, a number of statuettes. The material of these statuettes is wood, covered with plaster and then painted with gold leaf. These are not golden statuettes, and they are representing the king, King Tut himself, in the form of the great universal God, Geb, G-A-B. G-A-B was the god Geb, the god of the earth. Besides that, we have two statuettes on the sides for the falcon. The falcon during the ancient times was considered as a manifestation for the god known as Horus, H-O-R-U-S. They are also for King Tutankhamun, but in different positions. The one here to the left is for the king, as if he was a harpooner on a papyrus boat, holding the harpoon in his hand, and he is not catching a crocodile or a fish. No, he is trying to kill evil. As a harpooner killing evil. In the same time, we have another one on this side for the king killing evil, and the one here carried by the god is the king. He is considered as his father. The god carrying him as a son for him. You should know that during the ancient times in Egypt, there were no human sacrifice. Never. We never had human sacrifice in Egypt. They used to sacrifice animals or vegetables or fruits, perfumes, incense, anything, but never a human being. Inside this tiny coffin, in the form of the mummy, we found a lock of the queen's hair. After the death of the king, the queen was trying to say, after your death, I'm also dead. But she cannot kill herself. We have here is a number, 4 statuettes for the king, representing the king in different positions. The material of these statuettes is wood, covered with plaster again and painted with gold leaf, as I mentioned before. The 2 on the sides are for the king with the crown of Upper Egypt on his head, mounting a back of a panther or a leopard. And the 2 in the center are for the king with the royal emblems with the crown of Lower Egypt on his head. So they had 2 crowns, one for Upper Egypt and the other for Lower Egypt.